You elected a man to deport illegal aliens. There are far too many. They have come through open borders. You see it as an invasion. And then you have rogue judges and some of your representatives saying, no, we're going to undo all of your votes. This is federal law. It's one of the few areas where the president and the federal government has authority. So, habeas corpus. You guys know what habeas corpus is. Don't worry, I'll get to it. It can only be suspended, and it has been suspended in times of invasions or in times of rebellion. And right now, the claim is that the Trump administration is going to suspend habeas corpus. Let me ask you this. Do you think we meet the definition right now of an invasion? Would 20 million illegal immigrants in the last, throughout the last 4 years of that administration, and $150 to $450 billion in annual cost to the taxpayer, would that qualify? Okay, the next category is rebellion. Well, do you think it can be argued that there's some kind of rebellion against the United States when you have these rogue justices completely, flagrantly disregarding federal law? So let's look at the nationwide injunctions, for example, under Donald Trump, 30 so far. Biden had a total of 14. Obama had a total of 12. George W. Bush had a total of 6. It is completely unprecedented where you have local judges, you have local representatives deciding to usurp federal law. Why? To protect their voting bases. MS-13 are people who are here illegally. Just to give you some context, since 2000, 67% of nationwide injunctions were against Donald Trump. Jesus, 92% of those issued by Democrat-appointed judges. You don't know this judge. You didn't vote for this judge. And this judge has decided that they are going to implement their version of immigration law. Does that constitute a rebellion? At what point do we say, hey, we have to have some constitutional authority here? Your answers to those questions genuinely are going to determine how you feel about this portion of the program. So Stephen Miller, just last week, suggested that the Trump administration, they may be exploring suspending a habeas corpus.
President Trump has talked about potentially suspending habeas corpus to take care of the illegal immigration problem. When could we see that happen, do you think?
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not.
So here's the deal. The American people think that there's an invasion. The American people overwhelmingly support some kind of immigration reform. They overwhelmingly support securing the borders. And to a surprising degree, support deportations.
Yeah.
Right? It's over 60% last time we checked. 60% of Americans support deportation. So when the American public have elected a president to do this job, and you have rogue judges and rogue local representatives blocking it, okay, all right, that could be rebellion. But we certainly are already at the point where Americans have recognized what they view as an invasion. Not saying we should suspend habeas corpus, but I am saying that we have historically for less, and we'll get to that. However, the party of nuance, as they like to say, of course, immediately proceeded to melting down.
Pretty stunning comment from a top White House aide, Stephen Miller, on suspending habeas corpus, which is the right of an individual to challenge the government's right to detain them.
It's not a privilege, like Miller is calling it there. It's a fundamental part of our justice system that has been upended and suspended in the most emergent situations.
What Stephen Miller said was ridiculous. I think Jeff Toobin used another word, but it's loony. It's loony to do that. There's no invasion.
Says the lady
Stephen
in that
Miller gets his
haircut.
way, that he or Trump or ICE could decide to pick up Al Sharpton, pick up Peter Welch.
Please,
and we would we'd just be gone.
What is behind his immigration policies?
He believes that we are under invasion. And it's clear that he has, I'm not going to try to, I guess, explain, psychoanalyze what his.
You don't get Stephen Miller's head.
I don't want to get inside Stephen Miller's mind, actually.
Okay, we get it. By the way, the best response, and all this came from the Lincoln Project, named after Abraham Lincoln, saying, suspending habeas corpus. Let that sink in.
Didn't Lincoln do it?
Yeah, we'll get to that as our very first example.
Yes, he did.
But let's first go through, what is, for those of you who don't know, what is habeas corpus?
I think, Billy, didn't you get arrested for habeas corpus? Oh, no. That was necrophilia.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I think that's not even.
I'm glad you're able to post bond.
Yes. There's no argument to be made of police brutality. I think what you've been doing on weekends is quite brutal, Billy.
It's a victimless crime, though.
So habeas corpus, it's basically parlay. Right? You've seen that with the old pirates, like, parlay, if they're going to make you walk the plank.
Right.
It's your legal right to challenge the validity of a detention. So it prevents the government from holding someone indefinitely without any type of cause. It's your ability to, all right, hold on a second. Let me challenge this. Parlay. Let's just simplify that really quickly. So now we get to, okay, is this completely unprecedented? Has habeas corpus been suspended, and why? I want to bring back up overlay here, the one from the Lincoln Project, overlay A. Lincoln Project says, suspending habeas corpus. Let that sink in. And it's not funny because they're kid diddlers. It's funny because of the lack of self-awareness, because this brings us to 1861 to 1865. None other than Abraham Lincoln, we don't pronounce the project part, suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War, specifically to target Confederate sympathizers.
Crap.
It was initially done through executive order. That caused some legal issues, so Congress did pass a law granting Lincoln to suspend habeas corpus. Then we go to 1871. Grant suspended habeas corpus during the Reconstruction era to combat the KKK, specifically going out and attacking black people. And Congress passed a law specifically permitting the suspension of habeas corpus at that point in time because they were dealing with random acts of violence. And then it brings us to the next instance, 42 through 46, FDR, folk hero of the left. He suspended habeas corpus technically with the internment camps for the Japanese during World War II, and that included sometimes United States citizens. So it was never actually declared unconstitutional, but it wasn't quite constitutional because the courts and Congress kind of said they're not going to be upholding that in the future. That's one where a lot of people were upset, and I believe Michelle Malkin wrote some books about that. In defense of internment, I think, is one of them. So there are cases that were made on both sides. Let me also read you from the Constitution, Article 1. Habeas corpus can be suspended. It says the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless, when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it.
Can you read the first two words again?
The privilege.
That's all. So the idiotic morons on the media saying, it's not a privilege. I'm like, well, he's just kind of reading what it says. So it does say that.
It's not a privilege. Well, hold on a second. The first portion of the writing describes it as the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus.
What do they mean by that?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Is this one that we need an interpreter? Is this the one we're going to argue with me? There isn't even a comma. You can't pull your Second Amendment horse crap here. You can't be like, there's a comma. Just as the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus.
Okay.
So who decides if there's an invasion? Well, Congress technically would, but President Trump could suspend habeas, as you've seen with other presidents, pending congressional action. And so right now, the reason they're talking about this is a $20 million large invasion costing you $150 to $450 billion a year. You, the American worker, you, the American taxpayer, and you have rogue judges going out and blocking this. You have judges hiding illegal aliens in their houses. You have sanctuary cities. You have voted to deport illegal aliens. You elected a man to deport illegal aliens. There are far too many. They have come through open borders. You see it as an invasion. And then you have rogue judges and some of your representatives saying, no, we're going to undo all of your votes. This is federal law. It's one of the few areas where the president and the federal government has authority. Isn't it crazy how the left goes, the Federal Department of Education? Well, that's not their authority. It's not their authority to fund your local public school. It is under their purview to secure our borders and make sure that citizens are safe from external and internal threats. That's why we have a military. That's why we have border enforcement. They flip it entirely, where they consider, meaning the left, their wish list to be the federal authority, all the way up to and including free internet for everybody, a human right. For some reason, when it comes to securing our national borders, though, no, that should be left to local circuit judges. You guys let us know where you line up.
I want to ask you a question. Like, do you think this is something that the Trump administration should pursue now?
I think the threat is actually, I think it's a smart move to make. I don't know if they necessarily, I go back and forth.
I agree on this too.
You know what? I think for anyone who is an actual affiliation with MS-13, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
done.
great. Yeah. If there's a gray area, you know what? Let's play it safe. That's kind of where I line up.
Well, I think the case needs to be made. So I want Trump to get a win out of this. Right now, if he goes out and suspends habeas corpus and starts locking up American citizens, people are going to be up in arms and they will take to the streets. Right? I don't think that's a good look for this. And obviously the media is more than willing to carry the water on this because they've taken the cases of legitimate people that should be deported and spun them and lied to the American public to make it look like Trump is just picking people randomly off the street. So I feel like they need some more justices coming out and saying, no, you can't do this, and obvious cases for them to even get close to this. But I think this is Stephen Miller going, well, look, it just depends on what these justices, actually do.
Right.
And I think that's a fair point to make. I just hope he doesn't run too far with this because this would be, I think, right now a very losing issue for him. I want it done.
I understand.
The end result, meaning deportations, I want that done. But I don't think he has to go this far yet.
Something needs to be done here. There needs to be a little bit of some strong arm tactics when you consider what we're about to get to next. When you have local people deciding to completely subvert federal law. Because someone refusing to deport illegal aliens in New Jersey affects you in Oklahoma. Right? Someone refusing to do it in Connecticut, in Maine, wherever, it does affect you because those people are allowed to stay. And certainly if they're doing it with the blanket policy of we are not going to deport anyone, we are going to create sanctuary cities, well, guess what? You've now, if there's two safe havens for illegal aliens, that means there is 1 or 2 safe havens for gang members. And that means they'll just go there. They can get in a car and they can go there. This needs to be something that we are all on board with nationally, or we cannot solve the problem. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, you can click around and watch one of these videos on YouTube, or head on over to Rumble and subscribe, where I am live every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Live on Rumble. YouTube is dead. Rumble did it. And on Rumble, you can say